a Build Hatch developed production.
Hello, I'm Aaron Kyle and welcome to another episode of Build Hatch. On this week's episode of Build Hatch, I got to sit down with Mark from Hunter Frame and Truss. You as our listeners will know a little bit about Mark already, as Mark and I sat down on the show previously and discussed the current timber crisis emerging in Australia right now. Due to the wonderful feedback, a lot of people actually wanted to know and hear about Mark's own personal story. Like I said on last week's show, Mark is a really down-to-earth and switched-on businessman, and he really knows his stuff, as he understands all about the important relationships in the construction industry and the timber industry. So let's get into it. All right, Mark from Hunter Frame and Truss, welcome to Build Hatch.
Thank you.
People reached out last week and they were so sort of enthused and impressed and they want to get to know more about Mark, who you are, where you come from and how you got into business. So I thought what a perfect opportunity to go back and hear who Mark is and who's the brains behind the business, as they say. All right, Mark, so going back, where did you grow up?
I grew up on a farm just north of Port Macquarie on the mid-north coast.
Up north from here, a couple of hours.
Yeah, a couple of hours north, yeah.
So I grew up on a farm.
Grew up on a farm.
Country boy.
Country boy, absolutely.
So what were you like as a kid? Obviously very practical and...
Oh, yeah, I was a pretty quiet kid. I was painfully shy, actually, as a kid. And but, yeah, no, I enjoyed growing up on a farm. It was good fun.
What sort of farming was it?
So it was a cattle farm. Dad was an actual... He didn't do much farming as such because he was actually an agricultural contractor. So he'd go out and work on everybody else's farm.
Like a builder, their own homes usually.
Yeah, that's right. So his
priority.
His farm used to suffer quite a bit because quite often all the machinery was on somebody else's farm. So yeah.
So what, like I guess growing up through that, did you aspire to be a farmer when you finished school, or how did that play out?
No, I enjoyed it when I was younger, but as I got older, I just looked at the hours my father used to do and what he used to do, and I thought, no, this is not the life for me.
It's a hard life.
It's a very hard life, mate. Yeah, and I was as I got older, I got pretty social, and it's a pretty lonely life on a farm. You don't have necessarily a lot of social interaction around you, so I just wanted to get out and about and discover the world a bit. I didn't get very far, but I wanted to discover the world a little bit.
So what did you do when you finished up at school?
So I finished school. I finished my HSC, and I had a good mate of mine, Neil. His parents were actually out at Lightning Ridge, opal mining, right? So they said, "Do you want to come out and give that a crack for a while?" So I actually went opal mining for a little while. That was great fun.
So full underground tunneling,
underground the tunnels. Yeah. So we had all the cast off gear, my mate and I, and we used to go down and just hook in as well as we could and found a couple of opals, not enough to get rich, but they used to look after us. We didn't have to buy food or anything, so they looked after us that way and give us somewhere to sleep, and whatever we found was a bonus for us. So yeah, it was good fun.
How long did you do that for?
I was only out there. I was supposed to be out there 12 months, and then Dad actually called me up and wanted me to come home and help him. So I ended up out there for a few months. But it was a experience that stayed with me my whole life. Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
All right. So after opal mining, like you came back to the farm, and then what did you do? Come
back and work for Dad in his agricultural contracting business. But that was also problematic working and living with your father. So I didn't. So I stayed with him. I was probably there 12 months or so, So we did that with him for a while, and then I just had enough of that. So I got an opportunity to do something else. So off I went.
So what did you do?
The same friend Neil. He actually was working at one of the nail plate suppliers at Multinail, and they were at Warhope at the time. And he rang me one day and he said, the boss is trying to build a fence on his farm, right? He had like a 5-acre farm, and anyway, he's given up. He can't do it. He said, and I said, I knew somebody who knows how to do this. Do you want to come over and do it? I said, I can come over and do it, no problem. Anyway, so I got taken out to the farm, and they said, right, we need the fence to go from point A to point B. I said, okay, no problem. I said, what do you want me to do after lunch? And they said, no, it'll take a couple of days.
You mean next week?
Yeah. I said, no, it won't take me long to do that because it's only a simple picket fence, basically, like a star picket fence. So I got it done. He said, well, if you get it finished, you go in the house unlocked, and you gave me the number, ring me at the office and I'll come get you. I said, okay, no problem. So I was finished a bit after lunch, so I rang him up and he came and got me and went, wow, you really have finished. Okay. He said, all right, well, I suppose I need to give you a day's work. So do you want to work in the factory for the rest of the day? I said, yeah, okay, that'd be fine. So I started off making speed race, of all things, in the factory. So that's how I started in this industry.
So that was kind of the sneak peek or foot in the door moment, really.
Absolutely. So, and I think they offered me a couple more days' work, and I didn't hate it. I mean, I was used to working on a farm. This was easy compared to working on a farm, working for my father. So, and then I worked for him a couple more days, and they offered me a full-time job. So I took it. And yeah, sorry, Dad, but
So you did that for a while.
Mm.
Where did Hunter Frame and Truss come into the mix?
Well, from there, I worked in the factory for a little while, and then I actually hurt my back, and so I got put on light duty. So I got an opportunity to do a little bit in the office, and then obviously I did enough there for somebody to be impressed. So they actually offered me a job in the office. So then I worked for Multiland Total for about 8 years. I worked in the office looking after computers. Then I started to learn a little bit about the software that they do that actually does the frame and truss design.
So you had that sort of real nuts and bolts sort of insight into how it all works.
Yeah, so I didn't know anything about it when I got there, but and they're quite a progressive company. Like they like to employ from within. So the technical rep actually resigned, and they didn't have anybody lined up, and they said, "Do you want to apply for it?" I said, "I don't know how to do that, but I'll give it a crack." So I gave that a crack, and then from there, I actually went through to become the New South Wales State Sales Manager for them. And then, so as a rep and a sales manager, I'm out and about in every truss plant in the state and sometimes in the country, travel right around the country for them, doing different things.
So there's a shy young Mark getting around and
Absolutely
talking to people, networking.
And I was quite shy when I started, but I had some really good role models and some really good help from within the company and helped me expand my horizons. And so I learned a lot. And then that exposed me to a lot of other people in the industry, like, for example, the bloke Jeff who used to own Hunter Frame and Truss. So I got to know all these guys, and then I was fielding, job offer, every now and again, and then somebody offered me a job. It just came along at the right time for me. I just sort of had enough, and I was ready to go. And so I actually ended up managing a truss plant in Tamworth for a couple of years. I got offered another job, and I moved back to Newcastle.
So all throughout this time, were you ever thinking about working for yourself, or you were purely Mark the employee sort of thing?
I was an employee for quite a while, and then my ex-business partner, Glenn, got to know him pretty well. We worked together at Multino. We worked together at Goldsmiths Frames and Trusses, and we used to get on pretty good, and we were just having a chat one day, and we said to each other, you know what, if ever either of us get an opportunity, we should give this a go, And then many years later, I approached Glenn, and Glenn and I, we bought it together.
All right, so you decided to buy this existing business back then.
Yep.
How was that? Like, did you...
Daunting.
So what did you talk to anyone about what you were thinking of doing, or did you look into it a bit further, or was it just like, I know the business now and I can do this?
I talked to my accountant, probably the main person I spoke to, just to make sure the dollars were right. I actually spoke to my father as well. Yeah, that's about it, really.
So what was it like? You said daunting, but did the former owner have already a list of clientele or network? So it was about taking advantage of the existing ones, or did you go out and find new ones? Like, how did you do it?
I did know a lot of the clients already because I had worked there for a couple of years. So that was a big thing for me to go in not knowing some of the people. I knew some of the staff. I knew some of the customers. That was a big help to me.
Now, I don't expect you to remember this, but I'll tell you a funny story that goes hand in hand with your story. And I remember back when I was a builder a long time ago, I remember ringing your phone number up because I needed some prefabricated frames and trusses. And I remember saying to you, oh, look, can I come have a meeting? And you were actually a little bit surprised that I was willing to drive and come see you, because a lot of your established clientele and network, they already knew who you were. They were just buying the product. But I actually wanted to go make sure that I put a face to the voice and have a look at your factory. And back then it was quite daunting for a young builder to put a deposit down, to pay 30% deposit and then, 30% before delivery, and then before it leaves the factory as well, the rest. So I remember going to that factory,
Yeah.
which is a long time ago, obviously, and compared to where you are, this is like the Rolls Royce, isn't it?
It's a little different, yeah.
But it was great. Here I was in the middle of an industrial estate up in the country. You know, when I got there, you had the meeting room and we sat down and had a chat. So, yeah. So how difficult is it running a frame and manufacturing company in construction?
Oh, yeah, it has its moments. I mean, I have this theory, Aaron, that people deal with people. You know, I could be selling widgets, I guess, but, you know, it's about relationships to me. It's about relationships with my staff, relationships with my customers, and I've got to produce a product. It's got to be a quality product, and I'm going to get it right. But to me, it's all about the relationships.
So take me through the process. I mean, it may seem obvious to you, but you're sourcing timber in various lengths.
Yes.
Do you try and source smaller lengths? You obviously try and source longer lengths, but is there a method to the madness of how you order timber?
Yeah, there is. We have a couple of key lines or key sizes, if you like, lengths and widths of timber. Once we have those core sizes, and then we have the various lengths of those core sizes. So generally we try and stick with several lengths only, so we don't have too big a range because it's just a storage problem. And you can always cut a shorter length, have a longer length, you know. So
Yes.
That's what we aim for. At the moment, we've got more stock lengths than we've ever had, and that's due to the timber shortage. So we're accepting lengths now that I would not normally have at all.
Yeah, so if someone says, look, we don't have enough 6 metre lengths, we've only got 36s, you just take them basically.
I'll take them.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much take anything at this stage. So,
and they were some of the things that we were talking about last week. And I mean, you obviously received the structural engineering plans and the architectural plans, and then you've got someone in the office that converts that to a takeoff.
Yeah, so the way the process starts is that we get the plans. We then provide a quote based on those plans, and then the builder decides they want to accept the quote. They accept the quote. We schedule it. Then we request a final set of plans, and then we go through the design process in the office, which we call detailing, and then it comes out.
How long does that take? Like for an average house, say?
An average house. I mean, it's a bit of a how long's a piece of string question, but your cookie cutter sort of project builders, you know, you bang a couple of those, 2-3 of those out a day, I guess. The kind of work we do, you know, you might do one a day, you might take you 3 days to do one, you know, and then you might get the odd little granny flat that takes you an hour and a half, you know. So it does vary, but yeah, there's a fair bit goes into it.
In theory, you could spit out a house every day almost if you had to.
From the office, you mean?
Or in the factory.
Oh, factory wise, yeah. I mean, again, it's houses of different sizes, but yeah. Average size house, you know, 5 or 6 a week, something like that.
So how many guys are in your sort of factory floor at any one time?
So I've got 9 at the moment. So that's probably about optimum. I think the most we've ever had is 10, down to about 6. So, but 9's about the right number. Yeah. So 9 on the shop floor. Yeah.
And what's it like out there? I mean, you were nice enough to give me a tour earlier, and like the first thing I noticed was, and I know you're the kind of guy that you wouldn't have just done this for me, but how clean it is out there. You know, it's virtually a production line, literally with stockpiles of timber, and you know you've got all the tools. So I presume it comes in at the back there, gets dropped off, delivered by a truck, and then just makes its way around depending on what sort of tool.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you know, the trucks deliver the raw timber in, we bring it in on the crane, we store all that timber under cover before we use it, so that we can be as straight and true as possible. Then back through the production line, through the frame and the truss production line. And
that's because timber, if it's left out in the weather or moisture, like it bends and bows.
Yeah, it's it does come strapped and wrapped, and it can handle some exposure to the weather. But you know, it's like anything. If you look after it better at the start, you're going to get a better product at the end. You know, put quality product in, get quality product out. You know,
I think an important topic to talk about is I think this emerging supply shortage, if you like, that's impacting the construction industry. There are quite a lot of builders out there who, until now, haven't had to build too many walls and frames. It's been prefabricated, dropped off on site, and they've put them up.
Yeah, it's interesting at the moment. We've actually got a multi-res job that would normally do prefab for the ground floor, and the builders actually decided to go with building it on site for a couple of reasons. One, timber availability, and the floor system availability, which is a real problem at the moment because he can't get his floor system until another 3 weeks down the track. So there's not much point in having a prefab frame there. He needs something for his carpenters to do. So they're gonna stick build it. Unusual, but it's happening at the moment again because of the timber shortage.
So the yellow tongue flooring, or particle board flooring as it's commonly called, where does that come from?
I'm not sure where it comes from now.
But it's not mainly Australia, is it? It's mainly imported.
I think it's all imported. I'm
byproducts.
pretty sure it's all imported now. Actually made, there was a factory, I actually went through the factory many years ago at Oberon. It used to get manufactured there by Carter Holt before they got out of the industry altogether. So
yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. You're limited by the materials that you can get. So if you're not able to supply the floor, then, you know, it slows everyone down because you're waiting on that flooring system to go on to build the second or third floor.
yeah, and I think the floor systems are probably the biggest concern for me at the moment with the builders, because the builders, I can see situations where the builders can get out there and they might be building 3 or 4 houses at a time. They get the ground floor frames, that's fine, but if they can't get those floor systems in time to build their upper frame and trusses, then, you know, what are they going to do? You know, they've got commitments, they've got cash flow issues, you know, and I could see a situation where some builders might well fall over, and they fall over, and then I don't get paid, you know. So it's that flow-on effect, and it's a dangerous time.
Yeah, look, and
It
I
really
mean,
is.
it is dangerous. It's an emerging crisis. We were talking about it earlier, and I think part of the problem is obviously what's going on overseas. There's a massive increase in America. America's buying a lot of Russia's products, surprisingly enough. So yeah, it's definitely interesting challenges that's going on in the construction industry right now.
Yeah, well, I think the figures are something like 20 to 30% of timber that is actually imported that gets used in our industry, and it's just not coming at the moment because the States, they're having their own boom. They're paying top dollar, and it's not getting here, which is part of the issue with the timber, you know.
So LVLs, you're predominantly buying those from, like, they come from overseas as well?
Yeah, there's only one LVL manufacturer in Australia, and we do some work with them through a particular builder. But the rest of them, it's all imported.
Right. It's astonishing numbers, and, you know, it's having a crazy impact on, you know, we were talking about it on last week's show about that something like 75% of material comes from the government. And then you have these other private companies that are trying to log it and supply it. And then there's only a handful of LVL suppliers in Australia as well that provide the engineered structural timber. And that was why that product was brought onto the market in the first place, to try and save money so you didn't need so much steel. So yeah, it's definitely an emerging problem.
Yeah, and it's sad in a way because I know when I started that we were manufacturing quite a lot here. There was a fairly big manufacturing plant just not too far from here actually, but they closed many years ago now. As I mentioned earlier, Oberon, they used to do all the flooring there. It doesn't happen anymore. And a lot of that Carter Holt production used to come out of New Zealand. So whilst that's still technically an import, it's still it's in a region, and it's much more accessible than when it's going to come from Europe.
Yeah, it's just incredible the trends that we're starting to see take shape.
Generally, since I've owned it, the market stayed pretty stable. And the one thing about the building industry that it is cyclical. It goes up and down, but there's a continuity about it. It's not a fad. It's not a phase. It just stays solid. There's good, solid people working in it, and that's why I like it.
Yeah, look at and that's the theme of this podcast, and I say it all the time, but it comes down to relationships. And as I said, you know, getting in the car, driving, go see the factory, or have a chat with the person behind the phone. It's amazing to get to know someone and see how they run their business and who they are, because in the current climate, they are the people that you need to have in your corner to say, look, I need these frames, or I need these materials. I'm really struggling at the moment because, cash flow is starting to slow down on these people. And, you know, even if a job that was taking 12 months to build 12 months ago is now taking 18 months, if not longer. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
And the cost blowouts.
The cost blowout. So even if you had a 15% margin, that's probably down to 5% because of all the increases. from a signed contract committed to 12 months ago, and that 5% margin is then split over the 18 months or 2 years. Therefore, 2.5%, surprise, you haven't made any money.
Yeah, no, 100%. They're challenging times. They really are. We've got to design our way out of these timber shortages at times, you know. I've seen situations where we've had to, you know, we can't find a particular timber product. We've had to go to steel, or the steel's not available. Then I'll have a guess what? Let's go back to the drawing board. Let's redesign the house. You can only work with what you got.
Yeah, look, it's on par with what we were talking about on last week's show, where it was just about most of the materials are produced here in Australia. Even steel, you know, we mine the iron ore in the ground. It's in our backyard, and yet we've got all these increases, and it's nuts. People can't afford it, and I know we've talked about it before, but it's about that pinch point is there. It might be 2 weeks away, it might be 2 jobs away, it could be 6 months away, but there's a pinch point that occurs where people just can't keep swallowing the price increases. It gets to a point where the end user, the client, says, sorry, I'm not doing it. I can't afford it. It's too much money.
Absolutely.
I've seen it happen. You mentioned before about the industry being cyclical. The people, when the music stops, it's the people that you've had a great relationship with. They haven't ripped you off. They haven't provided exorbitant price increases. They've just passed on what they've been given and looked after you, and they're the guys that are the successful guys.
Yeah, well, and I think that's important for me. Like I'm pretty loyal to my suppliers, and I expect loyalty from my customers as well. It goes both ways. And we have seen through this timber shortage period that some of the frame and truss manufacturers that are not loyal to their suppliers, I mean, they literally get left out in the cold.
Yeah, so if you haven't paid your bill, or you're late paying, or, you know, you've done the wrong thing, surprise, surprise, when it comes to the crunch, the good guys, they keep going.
Absolutely, mate. And I've been around long enough, I've seen it before. You know, the best example I probably saw was the year 2000 when the GST came in. It was madness like this, but it was madness for a short time. And, the guys that were loyal, they got looked after. The guys that didn't, that weren't, they didn't get looked after. And a valuable lesson was a while ago now, but I looked at that and went, mental note.
Well, it's good you were mature enough to take that on board and observe that. You know, I can see through business and the structures you have in place, and I think you have to be like that in order to have a successful business. I mean, it's no different to building a house. You're building a product, you know, as you touched on earlier about, it could be any sort of widget, could be anything. But you're building a product and delivering a service at the end of the day. If you do that to the best of your ability and keep it affordable and look after people, 9 times out of 10 it flows back directly to you, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
All right. So Mark from Hunter Frame and Truss, when you're not busy running this production line up here in the Hunter Valley, what do you like to do outside of work?
Outside of work, so I probably have 2 things I really enjoy outside of work. One's golf, and the other's riding motorcycles. So
like dirt bikes or road bikes?
No. I grew up riding dirt bikes, but a little bit old for that now. They make me a little too sore. No, road bikes, touring bikes. I love to go touring down, but you get on the bike with a couple of mates, and you might just head off and you go for 3 or 4 days or a week or whatever, and you just tour in the countryside and having a beer at the end of the day and telling some lies around the campfire, or the probably not campfire so much these days, more around the hotel bar.
Yeah, well, I love it because it's I have to say I know a few guys who do that, and I would almost call it a select group of guys that they call it camping, on motorbikes, and it's just basically a legal pub crawl at the end of the day, according to the wife. So
yeah, that sounds about right. You ask mine, she'll tell you.
That's right. All right. So what's it like looking back now? We're here at your factory and your headquarters, and I touched on earlier, like it's such a neat sort of. I mean, it's quiet now. All the guys have gone home, but I love it. You walk in the place; it has a great feel and atmosphere. So, what's it like looking back?
Oh yeah, it's. I guess proud is the word. I'm pretty proud of it. Pretty pleased with where we are. That I was able to get this far, and that I haven't stuffed it up so far. So.
Oh, well, look, I think it's a great thing, and it's always good to get another perspective on the show. And I know there'll be a lot of people listening to this who appreciate your story. A boy from the farm who's grown up, worked hard, shy kid that's come out of his boots and created a successful business like this. I think it's very special. So for anyone listening to this, any builders or carpenters who can't get their hands on materials and want to develop a long-term relationship with Mark from Hunter Frame and Truss, what's the best way to go about it?
I'll probably just go to the website, hunterframe.com.au.
And then pick up the phone or send an email.
All the contact details are there, so you can get hold of us there. But I'm always happy to help anybody I can,
Yeah, look, I think that's very special, and these are the stories that we talk about, the real stories. So, I'm stoked that you came on the show and continued what we were talking about before. So, as always, thanks for coming on to Build Hatch.
No problem. Thanks, Aaron.
Well, that was another Build Hatch episode with myself and Mark from Hunter Frame and Truss. As usual, please check out our Instagram page and other socials, including our YouTube channel, where you'll be able to learn more about our guests and the features of the work that we talk about. We have some exciting things coming up shortly too, so stay tuned. Have a great week, and you'll hear me again on the airwaves next week. Thanks for listening to another episode of Build Hatch.
You have experienced a Build Hatch developed production.